Well, good morning, I think. Only just, 11:45. Good morning from the dark heart of Cowal. I'm still here, spending the week in this part of Argyll. And the other day, at the previous blog, I was at Puck's Glen. Spent 2 days there actually in the end. And I am spending the rest of this week exploring this part of Scotland that very few people really even know about. When people were asking me where I was going this week and I said I'm going to Cowal, there was lots of quizzical looks, puzzled faces. Where's that? People know Loch Fyne, they know Loch Long, and they know towns like Dunoon, but they don't really know that this whole area that's bordered by Loch Fyne in the west, Loch Long in the east, is, and going up sort of all towards the rest to be thankful, is called Cowal. Sort of three-pronged peninsulas that stretch down towards the Firth of Clyde. Puck's Glen was down by Dunoon, so practically over the water from Greater Glasgow in a way. I mean, well within reach of a day trip from Glasgow. Where I am now is up towards the northwest of Cowal, pretty much on Loch Fyne, and it's this sort of scenery, typical of this part of Scotland really. Wide glens, the hills not massive, fairly substantial, some of them getting over 700 metres, and dense conifer plantations. The same kind of thing that was at Puck's Glen, but not that sort of focus on planting a variety of species for ornamental means. This is forestry, this is proper, just plant it and then harvest it in however many decades. Arguably, in my opinion, I mean people are all different, it's not the most attractive of landscape types in this country. Sitka spruce, this stuff, the stuff that's from Pacific Northwest and Alaska and British Columbia, very fast growing in Scotland. I think it grows faster here than it does even in its native habitat. It grows very fast, which is why it's planted en masse for harvesting. They are, if you go over there to Canada and you see Sitka spruce in its natural habitat, then these forests, these massive trees, are very beautiful places. Because it's planted for harvesting as a crop, very dense, very close together, these just aren't attractive places for me personally. And the way that they sit on the landscape, I don't think it's not attractive really, especially once it's harvested as well, and then you just get that hideous hillside full of tree trunks that you can't even walk through. So it is what it is. This is our national forest stock that I was saying in the last blog was planted en masse after 1919, after the Forestry Commission was founded, so that we could be sustainable in our domestic wood needs if there was another war. But this is the legacy. Argyll does have this massive logging industry. There's a fox, look. Not something that the farmers will want to see around here, that's for sure. Look at it. I very rarely see them. You see them in town, so when I stayed in Edinburgh, you used to see them all the time. Oh, got a shot. And so, a lot of the sort of remote countryside, if you sort of go into the interior of Cowal, away from the very pretty coast and the beautiful lochs, indented coastline, looks like this. This mix of glens and plantations. And today, I'm heading up two hills, Ben Tushan and Ben Lochan. Ben Lochan, the higher of the two, somewhere up there, at 703 metres. So, just going into Graham territory. At 700 metres, it's not massive, but it's got a wintry top today. We've had a bit of snow, and it's still a bit of a hike up from almost sea level, so it's fairly substantial. Debate rages still as to whether these sorts of plantations are just ecological deserts. Certainly that was always I think going into sort of the 70s and 80s, 90s maybe, there was a backlash of people just saying it's not native woodland, nothing grows underneath it. I mean, if you go in there, there's very little to be found, to be fair. It's so dark, and it's just a mass of needles on the ground. But there has been sort of a counter-argument in more recent years saying that these are valuable places in themselves. Certainly they're refuges to things like pine marten and the red squirrel, crossbill, a lot of our famous sort of native wildlife. But there is actually also quite a lot that does live in there that you just can't see, because you never venture in there to see it. So these are valuable places in themselves, but I personally don't like them very much, just because it's not a nice, it just doesn't feel very natural, and because they often have very linear, abrupt edges to them on the hillside that just doesn't look very attractive. Jars, I think they're every bit as jarring visually on the landscape as, say, a massive hill farm is. Hill farm? Wind farm. I mean, certainly that's a case in point. You can just see what happens on the hillside. It's just completely unnatural. But I mean, some species do benefit from having a sort of forest edge. There are lots of species that like the edge of a forest rather than the interior. So all these things none of these things are bad per se. It just comes down to personal preference, I suppose, what you like. Because a lot of these forests, however many decades old they are, 20, 30 years maybe, they're all planted at the same time, and they'll tend to get felled at the same time. All over Cowal, I've noticed this week, I mean, you see logging trucks on the road, so many logging trucks, constant buzz, and whole hillsides sort of clear felled, when you get rid of all the trees in one space all at once, which isn't great for the wildlife that lives there. It's not great visually, so there's a sort of best practice these days, so it's difficult when you're doing it on such a big scale. Certainly for smaller forests, like the one where I work at Craigs in West Lothian, you're getting away from clear felling, and these days you're going for what's called continuous cover. So you go into a dense forest like this, you size up which trees are ones that are going to sort of thrive if you get rid of a few others. So you go in and thin, and you selectively take trees that aren't doing so well, or ones that are hindering other ones, but you just take gradually. You've got a constant source, and you're constantly replanting, and it means you've always got cover. That also means you have trees of different ages. If you go to any forest that's been around for a very long time, ancient woodland especially, you've got a mix of big old mature trees, ancient trees. You've got saplings coming up, and you've got an understory of sort of something in between. Where the trees fall over, where they blow over, you might get glades where some more sunlight gets in, lets maybe wildflowers, other species get in, give them a chance, because there's not much light often if you've got a dense canopy up top. So you need sort of the healthiest woodlands have a diverse, what's called woodland structure. They have a mix of everything, as many different individual habitats inside this one general habitat, and then you get the maximum number of species trying to exploit it and carving out their own niche. And that's what you don't get in plantations. It's all uniform size, age, spacing, everything. It's all very, which is what you do when you're planting a crop. You do it in a regimented style. That's where we'll be going very shortly. It's not too steep an ascent, thankfully. It looks a bit icy up there, but certainly not the wintry cloak that you might expect to have in February. Right, now this is a turning off point. Up here, it's a way of getting through the forest and gaining the high summit ridge. But there's also a reason I wanted to come up this route today, is there's something rather special up there that we're going to have a look at. Very rough ground, tussocky, steep, no path, just following some vague deer tracks, which with the bracken that's dead everywhere, forest, bracken, deer, the tick alarm should be sounding by now, hopefully this time of year. Even with the strange winter, we shouldn't have a problem with ticks. It's 3 degrees, probably a bit cooler up here, but February sunshine, it's warm. Oh. There's a lovely waterfall over there that I'm not going to go and investigate, so, well, it's quite tiring, this terrain, so I'm not going to go down there and explore. It's actually quite an interesting feature, this gorge that's here. If I went to the end now, I'm not sure I'll be able to climb back out again, so keep on this path, even though there is no path. You know what I mean. Well, this is the first indication, first hint of what lies up here. And a bit more twisted bits of metal, rusted. Actually not that unusual things to find. I'm sure most of you, many of you have probably come across rusting bits of metal in burns, high up on hillsides. And you wonder what they are, how they got there. I'm sure you probably guessed the nature of the thing up here we're going to have a look at. It's funny, I've seen pictures of it, and it's quite mind-boggling seeing photos. So to actually be about to go, I'm actually starting to walk slower because I think it's that huge a thing that just not sure how I'm going to react when I get there. I've noticed, so I'm actually very slowly walking towards it now because I don't know if I'll be able to take in the enormity of it. Lovely spot though. Almost alpine today. See, it's being consumed by the landscape. Gives a hint of how long it's been here. And it says, in memory of the crew of United States Air Force B-29 Super Fortress, which crashed here on the morning of 17th of January 1949 with a loss of all 20 crew members aboard. And there it's got all their names. I mean, as I said on the way up, I think most of us have probably encountered the odd bit of wreckage on the hills. I certainly have. I mean, coming down Loch Long, there's some wreckage in one of the burns around there. On Benvironment, which is a hill a bit north of here, there's a wildcat that crashed in 1940, and there's a whole wing left over from the war. But this is just on a completely different scale. It's not like anything else I've ever seen on the hill before. It's you can't really. It's difficult to take it in. I mean, it's just utter carnage. It was, I mean, a super fortress was one of these big old American planes, one of these big bombers. They're the ones that dropped the nuclear bombs, the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You know, they were big workhorses that had big long ranges, 5,500 miles or thereabouts. And these ones, this is after the war, of course, 1949, but this one had been involved with the Berlin airlift when, I never really know what precipitated it. It was something to do with introducing the Deutschmark into West Berlin by the Allies, and then Stalin not being happy about it, and the Russians not being happy about it. So, and then the blockade of Berlin essentially started. So the Allies, the US, Canada, Britain, New Zealand, Australia, South Africa started airlifting in supplies to keep West Berlin afloat, so the people didn't starve. And it was in the region of 200,000 flights a year were being done. And this went on for a year. You know, this was a big, long thing. And this was midway through, getting towards the end. This one apparently had been involved with the Berlin airlift, and it was on its way back to its home airfield in Kansas with another B-29. They were both heading up from Lincolnshire, from a base, that's where their base was. And one of them turned back because it was heavy icing, which is like rime ice. You know, when you see rime ice on a summit cairn in the hills, it's that sort of thing of super cooled water droplets in the air, which are below freezing, but so pure, no dirt inside them. There's nothing for the ice crystal to crystallize onto. You need a bit of dirt. So there's this very, very cold water in the air, super cool droplets, and when they hit a surface, they freeze. And that's what happens. You know, that's why you see when you're at the airport and you have you see them spraying the wings, you know, to stop this from happening, de-icing your wings so it doesn't happen. And if you get icing on the wings, then it means that you have difficulty in getting lift, and it affects how aerodynamic the plane is. So one of these ones apparently turned back to Lincolnshire as it got over Scotland and started having problems with icing. The other one carried on for whatever reason and supposedly apparently clipped the top of Ben Tarshan over there, and here it is. All 20 people, all 20 crew died. Cairn was put here, it said it was put here by number 2296 Squad Dunoon Air Training Corps and Dumfries and Galloway Aviation Museum. There was a plaque that was put here by the widow of the pilot on the 60th anniversary, which would have been 2009. So a lot of this is in living memory. It's people still alive who have very much got an interest, a personal family interest in this place. I mean, it's clearly old and it's rusting, and you know, you can tell it's been here a while, but yet some of the metal is in such good nick still. I mean, it's got a shine to it. It's amazing the condition stuff's in. I mean, it's 70 years old nearly, but you do have undercarriage there, bits of wing. There's that window maybe, but all the way down the bottom, which is just the most striking thing I've ever seen on the hill, I think, is that. You might be wondering what it's all still doing here and why no one's taken it away. I was wondering that myself. Especially, you know, a crash this big. I don't know. I mean, I did do a little digging. There is a Protection of Military Remains Act, 1986, piece of legislation that forbids disturbance or removal of anything from one of these things. I mean, it's a grave, presumably. It's all military property, whether it's British or otherwise. And I don't know. It's inaccessible. Was it expensive? Did nobody want to do it? I don't know. I don't know if you know. If you do know, do tell me, because I'd like to know. But I mean, I'm guessing it's just because it's commemorative. And they're just leaving it as it is. I think these days, if there are military crashes, things are they go and take everything off the hill. But for whatever reason, I mean, there's a lot of these crash sites around Scotland. There's big chunks of metal around the place. You'll encounter them every now and then. Maybe it just wasn't the case that you know, there was anything in place to actually do anything about these things, and people were happy to leave them. But you do encounter them. But I've never encountered anything like these before. And this it's not the cockpit, It's the gun turret, which was right at the back of the plane, right on the tail end. So, you know, if you're in combat, you'd have someone sat in there right at the back of the plane. And it does look, I mean, everything just, these cables, these wires, they look like they were put here today, you know, yesterday. So it's remarkable. I don't know, is that an engine of some description? Nothing really. It's like I say, down there I was getting slower coming up here because I'd seen pictures of this place, and just a bit of trepidation, because I do wonder why have I come here? Is it just voyeurism? Is it curiosity? Is it to take a few pictures, to do a video blog? I don't know, but there is this, I mean, it's a curiosity, isn't it? I mean, you can't help but be fascinated by something like this. It's human nature to be intrigued by stuff like this. I do feel a bit voyeuristic coming here. I do feel a bit uneasy about it. Yeah, don't really know what else to say. It's a very sad spot, very wild, remote. And now all this, I mean, this wasn't here. Some of the photos I saw from this place of people coming to visit it were from 1997, 98, and these trees were barely here. Just been planted, or maybe they weren't even here at all. So I mean, these are 20 years old, maybe, these trees. So people have been coming up here. There would have been people coming up here en masse, you know, to plant trees. And so there would have been people in vehicles. Could they have brought some of this stuff back down with them? It's not like people haven't been coming up here to actually, for whatever reason. But I don't know, I mean, it's all still here. It's a remarkable place. Right, on our way. It's just after 3 o'clock, and although the days are getting longer, still need to get shifty on. I'm heading up Benvironment, which isn't that one that I pointed to down there. It's the one I'm coming up now. And then Benvironment is over there behind there, just going to come down this ridge. Hopefully should be straightforward. The more eagle-eyed among you may have noticed that I'm only got one trekking pole now. Just as I was getting to the crash site, I noticed that I only had one pole, and I've been using them. So how on earth can I have lost a pole? I spent an hour easily retracing my steps back through the forest, probably to about there, and then back up again in search of it. I mean, retracing my steps exactly, and there's no sign of it. I'm gutted because I'm away for a month, and this leaves me with one pole. I'm going to have to try and go through Fort William or something and get a replacement. How can you lose a pole when you're using them? I can understand it if they're stuck to the back of your bag or something. I'm baffled. Baffled. Nice to see winter clinging on, somewhere at least. Although it is today, 1st of March. It's the first day of meteorological autumn. Autumn? Spring, I wish. Weather's taken a turn. Hopefully it's just a shower. Well, having all the weathers today. God, if you'd have seen the weather this morning down on the shores of Loch Fyne at Otter Ferry. I was sat down there this morning at the quayside, sunshine, amazing reflection off the loch. Now look at it. Amazing how quickly it changes. It's characteristic, I suppose, of spring this time of year. There's a bit more energy in the sun's rays. Strikes up a bit more convection off the sea. So you get these big showers coming through. You get interspersed with warm, sunny spells. Oh dear. I'm really missing having my other pole. Oh, I don't realise till you haven't got... till you're missing something valuable, how much you miss it, how much you need it. The ground is awful. It's so wet, so boggy. Down the bottom, I had half a mind to just turn around and come back the way I'd come up. I have no great need or desire to climb this hill in particular. It just made sense to do it because it makes a nice loop back to where I've left the car. So I'll press on. But it does look like it's clearing over there a bit, so just a shower, hopefully. Oh dear. All this snow that's left is the remnants of the same weather system that brought that snow to Fife, Storm Doris, a kindly old lady. It just shows how much did fall, because it has been intermittently mild since then, but it's still here. Is this the top, we ask ourselves? Somehow I suspect not. Oh, maybe. Ooh, it's a clearing picture. Perfect timing. And it is all clearing up again. Well, all the way over there is our retreating snow shower. And I know I said I had no great need or desire to climb this hill, but look how it has opened up. Just wonderful. I mean, it's been quite murky for the last couple of hours, sort of showers threatening, and now it has all obviously cleared up as the day's coming to an end. Just the most amazing light over there. Wonderful, wonderful light. Well, the hills over there, Benvironment, has disappeared. Way over there, and you can see all the ways to Firth of Clyde. See, there's all the towns along that stretch over there. I can see the Whiteley's wind farm in the distance, so you can see a long way up here. It's quite impressive how far you can see. But it's gone really cold as well. It's 4:15 and I've got to come all the way along this ridge yet. So I should probably get a move on, really. God, it's cold. It's really cold. And the sun's coming out now as well. Perfect end. It's that thing again I had in the Cairngorms where the sun's going down and you're getting that light and you want to linger, but you don't want to stay up on the hill too late. You know, you don't want to be coming off the hill in darkness, ideally. It's tempting to stay up. But I think I should probably get down. Time to go.